Hello, you dirty little boys. Are you interested in my body? Watch. Well, you can't have it. Because this isn't for boys, it's for men.
So, in recent memory, you might have heard of an actress called Sydney Sweeney. She seems to be making the rounds in the news this year, and not necessarily for all the best reasons. As of me making this video, she actually holds the record for the most amount of flops tied to an actress in 2025, having starred in 4 movies that ended up tanking pretty drastically at the box office. In particular, she starred in Christie, Americana, Eden, and Echo Valley this year, the first 3 of which came to theaters and ended up underperforming, and the last of which was a straight-to-streaming movie that ended up underperforming the amount of streams that Apple was hoping for since they were the distributor for the film. Now, on the surface, you could perhaps write this off as these being the sorts of films that most mainstream audiences aren't necessarily going to flock to. For a bit of an example, most general audiences aren't going to flock to something from Searchlight Pictures or A24 like Rental Family or Friendship from earlier this year, the way they're going to flock to something like Avatar Fire and Ash later this month. Unless you're a weirdo like me and saw The Roses, Friendship, Rental Family, and Eddington all in theaters this year. But when we look at the films that Sydney Sweeney has starred in, and more specifically Sweeney herself, there obviously is a bigger problem that is turning off a lot of people to her films. Earlier this year, Sydney Sweeney underwent some controversy due to an ad she appeared in for American Eagle jeans. The ad itself raised some eyebrows since some speculated it might be hinting at eugenics, since Sydney Sweeney is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman and she talked about having good genes in the ad. People weren't really sure if Sweeney was actually trying to hint at eugenics though, so after the ad actually came out, she was given a chance to clarify her stance on this by getting interviewed. But unfortunately, her response to this reporter asking her about that and trying to give her an opportunity to clarify herself and also distance herself from eugenics was very telling.
Is there something that you want to say about the ad itself? The Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Do you have...
The ad spoke for itself.
Maybe specifically in this political climate, like, white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
So yeah, due to this, and also the audience that Sydney Sweeney very intentionally tries to market herself towards, she's earned something of a moniker as what is known as an anti-woke pick-me girl. For those unaware what an anti-woke pick-me girl, or just what a pick-me is in general, it's usually a woman that very intentionally markets herself towards a very particular audience, usually spouting out different beliefs or saying things she knows will resonate with that audience. And of course, usually it's a male audience in particular. In the case of Sydney Sweeney, she often puts on this not like the other girls, cool girl type persona that she tries to market specifically towards a right-wing male audience. And she will often make statements as if they're a generally accepted objective fact rather than an opinion she has, or in some cases misinformation that she's intentionally tweaked. This is the case for a lot of anti-woke pick-me girls since they want to state things that they know will resonate directly with their male audience, even if they may not necessarily believe it themselves. However, it's very easy for them to echo the beliefs of their audience back to them in order to create a market off of that. Now, it is important there is a difference between a pick-me girl and a girl that says something that you don't necessarily agree with. Just like how there's a difference between a grifter and just a critic that says something you don't agree with. Much like someone who is actually a grifter, a pick-me girl will often try to sell their audience on an ideology whether or not they actually hold that belief themselves, usually for personal gain, generally monetary gain. This is different than just simply a woman who has a different opinion. So today, I want to look at a variety of pick-me girls, talk about why exactly they are pick-me girls, and talk about where exactly their career is going because of that currently. To start, let's start with Sydney Sweeney, who's probably the most recently relevant out of all these pick-me girls, and also one of the most interesting as to how she became a pick-me in the first place. Sydney Sweeney initially got her start having smaller roles in TV shows such as Grey's Anatomy and Kickin' It for Disney. She would go on to have smaller roles in shows like Heroes, Criminal Minds, Pretty Little Liars, The Middle, and things like that, until eventually she reached her breakthrough role in The Handmaid's Tale. Her role as Eden in this show was what ended up bringing her into the mainstream, and following this, her role in Euphoria ended up bringing her even further into it, and also her role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She also, unfortunately, starred in the film Madam Web, which, of course, was a big flop. After starring in this film, Sweeney decided to more or less write it off by starring in an SNL monologue where she joked about being in the film.
You might have seen me in Anyone But You or Euphoria. You definitely did not see me in Madam Web.
And for some reason, during this monologue where she jokes about starring in Madam Web of all things, this is actually the moment where a lot of right-wingers began to cling to her as an icon. In particular, after this episode aired, an article came out from the National Post calling Sydney Sweeney's breasts double D harbingers of death of woke. No, I am not making that up, unfortunately. And as a result, a lot of other right-wing outlets started jumping in on this, calling Sydney Sweeney their new anti-woke queen, essentially, which caused a lot of confusion for Sweeney herself, believe it or not. At first, she was confused why so many right-wingers were suddenly jumping on her and being obsessed with her, something she expressed in an interview with NME. Part of the cause for her landing in the eyes of a right-wing audience could very well be this thing that was mentioned during the monologue on SNL.
But when people ask, did you go to a Trump-themed party for your mom? I say, Idaho.
For those who don't know what Sydney is referring to, she's talking about how in 2023 she attended a birthday party for her mom that was actually all MAGA themed and did take place in Idaho. Her mom was turning 60, so everybody wore red hats that said "Make 60 Great Again." This actually caused quite a concern because, at least at the time, Sydney Sweeney's fanbase was actually mostly full of young progressive people, since those are the ones watching Euphoria. Sydney, however, dismissed her then fanbase and more or less doubled down on this, claiming that her mom's birthday party's theming wasn't meant to make a political statement at all. Even though, of course, the party was entirely MAGA themed, so yes, by definition, this is politically themed. Which, of course, is why exactly a year later, she ended up making this joke on SNL. And it's more than likely her joking about this that caused a lot of right-wingers to turn on to her to begin with. And it does seem that despite claiming that she was unsure why all these conservatives were jumping on her bandwagon, Sweeney did pick up on this after a bit and decided to market herself directly towards them after a while. She essentially began to adopt this cool girl, not like the other girls type attitude that a lot of these types of folks that pander directly towards right-wing men usually do in general, sort of what Michael Bay made Megan Fox do in Transformers. She ended up collabing with Dr. Squatch for this ad that is honestly one of the most cringy things ever if you really look at it here, where she calls the audience dirty little boys and tries to sell soap to them. Yeah, this is somehow real. This is the world we live in now. But the fun didn't stop here, because after a long string of these kinds of collaborations targeted directly towards a Gooner audience, including trying to sell her bathwater as a soap, no, I'm not making that up, Sydney Sweeney finally participated in the collaboration that earlier this year got her a lot of controversy. She ended up starring in an American Eagle pants ad where she talked about having good jeans, which on the surface seems fine. The ad was about pants, she's wearing American Eagle jeans in the ad says she has good jeans. But a lot of people began to speculate, since Sydney Sweeney is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman, and the fact she does cater exclusively to a right-wing audience, whether this was actually an ad about white supremacy or not. So as a result of the speculation on this ad actually did cause quite a bit of controversy, and there was quite a bit of backlash towards it. As a result, after this ad initially came out, Sydney Sweeney ended up getting interviewed, and the person interviewing her actually threw her a bunch of bones to try to help her distance herself from this ad and what it possibly implied. But unfortunately, her response and interpreted attitude towards this reporter wasn't exactly the greatest.
Is there something that you want to say about the ad itself? The Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Do you have...
The ad spoke for itself.
Maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
The president tweeted about the jeans ad, or Truth Socialed about the jeans ad, and that just seems to me like a very crazy moment for anyone, and I wondered what that was like.
It was surreal.
Are you f***ing dumb?
Sweeney very easily could have denied the accusations of her trying to advocate for white supremacy and eugenics during this interview, but instead she just doubled down and didn't really try to distance herself from it at all. So as a result, because of this interview, any doubt of her trying to advocate for that and cater exclusively to a right-wing audience pretty much disappeared instantly when this interview aired. This essentially cemented her reputation as an anti-woke pick-me girl that doesn't really care at all about other women and simply wants to cater towards anti-woke gooners. Which was quite a big mistake on her part when you look at the box office numbers from all of her movies from this year. While Sydney did have quite a bit of success in film and TV previously because of her trying to double down on catering towards this specific audience who doesn't really care about art house films at all, none of them actually showed up to watch those films at all, since ultimately they only care about Sydney for her body and gooning to her. This isn't the kind of crowd that's gonna care about niche, independent, director-driven films. So as a result, every film she made this year ended up being a massive box office flop. I think this really goes to show just how drastically being a pick-me can really affect someone's career and ultimately their longevity as well. Sure, there absolutely can be short-term benefits for leaning into this sort of trend at the moment, like it is often for a lot of anti-woke riffs in general. But ultimately, just like channels like Geeks and Gamers, Clownfish TV, and others who tried to directly lean into this anti-woke trend, this really didn't work out well for Cindy in the long run at all. Now it's honestly looking pretty uncertain whether she'll actually be able to make a comeback in the greater film and TV scene in general. I guess time will tell, but for now, her reputation as an anti-woke pick-me girl has definitely put her in a pretty precarious position. The audience she's cultivated for herself just doesn't care about the kinds of films she wants to put out. And that's really what happens oftentimes with these pick-me's, or really any kind of grifter overall. Once you cultivate this audience and make this your entire shtick, you can't really move to anything else more meaningful or actually worthwhile afterward. Your audience that you cultivated is simply there for the grift, and if you try to do anything else, any actual content, they'll just move away. I think it's also a reason why you often see a lot of these pick-me girls just end up going into crypto scams by the end of their career as well. That's what ended up happening with the Hawk Tuah girl and Cooking with Kaya, who ended up making their careers catering towards this exact kind of gooner audience as well and hating other women, and then trying a last-ditch effort to create a big crypto scam only for that to backfire horribly and then having to file for bankruptcy, which is exactly what happened to both of these people. Cooking with Kaya got it pretty bad in particular, being one of those trad wife types on TikTok who was making pretty awful looking food and twerking constantly on camera, and ended up making a short-term killing off of doing this, and then within a year ended up filing for bankruptcy, having blown all of that money entirely. Wow, alright then, clearly it pays to be a pick-me. But speaking of trad wife types, I think another really interesting example of the pick-me girl would be none other than Darlingstrawbie, the anti-woke VTuber. For those unaware, Darlingstrawbie is the wife of another anti-woke VTuber, Rev Says Desu, who I've covered here before on the channel. Rev is a VTuber who claims to be anti-censorship, but really only cares about censorship when it's censoring loli designs, and he doesn't actually care about any other kind of censorship at all in the anime industry. If there's ever an example of censorship in the anime industry that comes up and is widely talked about, he will often intentionally ignore it and only talk about it when it comes to loli designs. So really, Rev isn't actually anti-censorship, he's just pro-loli. And he's also come under fire in previous memory for endorsing a meme that was hinting at a lolicon hentai, which is pretty bad.
A thread that's gonna separate the veterans of degeneracy from the innocents. So here's the thread, an original piece of art posted on the official HoloLive subreddit. To sum this up, if you know, you know. But in case you don't know, or if you want to sit back and reminisce for a few seconds if you do, this artwork is a reference to Shoujo Ramune. What is that, one might ask? It's a cute anime about a couple of adolescents learning about life, doing some idol training, having some yogurt, hanging out at bus stops. A very wholesome slice of life anime. Okay, so it's a very popular lolicon hentai.
But even despite all this, Rev's wife is also a really interesting subject in of herself. She initially got her start doing ASMR girlfriend roleplays on her main channel. Much like Rev himself though, Straub came under a lot of controversy as time went on, especially when she started posting things like saying lolly pussy hits different. And also posting under that, will I get canceled for this tweet? I hope so. Wow, real classy there, Straub. That's really funny. You could be comedian of the year. Who said female comedians aren't funny? It's also even worse when you realize the fact that Straub is saying all this stuff about kids and is actually an elementary school teacher herself.
Be a teacher. I went to school to be a teacher. You'd make a
And,
great teacher.
Aw, thank you.
You say like you feel like you're a teacher sometimes when you're streaming.
I do sometimes feel
Really?
like-
Oh, because you're talking to a group of people.
Yeah, talking to a group of people, and like, I don't know, when you're handling like, if little scuffles happen, it kind of feels like when you're like handling kids in school, like, okay, stop fighting, you know, like in the Discord server.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
Jesus Christ, if I was the principal of that school, I would want Straub and Rev far away from every kid on that premise. This is like the worst possible scenario here. Oh, but the lolly-loving fun doesn't stop there, because at one point, Straub ended up gifting Rev a lolly review book for his birthday. And they ended up reading it on video together as well.
We got here. My girlfriend bought me some literature. I don't know if this can go in the video, but goddamn.
Yan Yan, don't.
Read it, come on. ASMR style too.
Yan Yan, don't
It's
shove.
Yoon. It's Yoon.
Yoon Yoon, don't shove. I can't help it, it's so cramped in here.
My god.
What the hell is wrong with you, boy?
Wow, Rev and Straub have to be the couple with the most visible L's since Terry and Megan. This is so freaking awful. At one point, Straub was even caught defending the cunning VTuber Shondo, who got banned off Twitch for degenerate behavior, and rightfully so. She was intentionally trying to cater towards a very degenerate and very gross child-loving audience by making streams like this.
Plop, 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 sex, cunny, sex, cunny.
Wow, that's definitely a big yikes and certainly deserved to be banned off Twitch, but unfortunately for Straub, she tried to defend this behavior. This caused even more scrutiny to be cast upon her, and also, not long after this, she ended up being made fun of on stream at one point by one random person who said her fingers were fat. And this caused her to crash out very hard on Twitter of all things over one random commenter saying her fingers were fat. Like, come on, people say this kind of stuff on streams all the time, you can just ignore it. It's very clear the only reason Straub was crashing out over this on Twitter was because she wanted to draw attention away from her defending Shondo. The L's were certainly beginning to pile up for Straub quite a bit, and her career as an anti-woke ASMR pick-me girl is beginning to look a lot more precarious. In a similar vein, her husband Rev was also in a pretty precarious situation as well, and he was beginning to become very controversial as well. This actually resulted in them being dropped from Makeship, which is a plushie company that they've both been partnered with for about 3 years. So as a result of their controversies beginning to affect them and their careers as content creators individually, both of them finally decided to come together and do the Christian grift. Oh boy, don't you just love it when anti-woke YouTubers end up doing this? It works so well for Tectone. So yeah, as of me making this video, Straub's content now comprises of her doing ASMR videos of Bible verses, oh boy. And she continues to try and plow forward on anti-woke grifting as well, despite the fact that, funny enough, 2 years ago, she was actually clowning on Heel vs Babyface for his really stupid Starfield pronouns rant. That's right, the woman who currently complains about woke stuff in games and tries to act like a high and mighty Christian was clowning on Heel vs Babyface. No, I am not making this up. The hypocrisy is absolutely real. So now Straub has tried to appeal to a conservative Christian audience now by claiming she and Rev are both Christians now with her being a conservative Christian pick-me, apparently. And she's also gone ahead and posted daily Bible verses and also really awful looking food, not gonna lie. I think instead of grifting, she should take some cooking classes, holy crap. This is even worse than the stuff Cooking with Kaya was coming up with. And ultimately, despite her claims that she is a Christian, Straub really isn't a Christian whatsoever. She and Rev constantly still try to create harassment campaigns around people they just simply don't like. If Straub or Rev had actually read the Bible, they would know that one of the 10 commandments is do not spread false witness against thy neighbor. And that means don't join your husband in lying about ProZD and acting like he's the boogeyman of the voice acting industry, Straub. One of the most famous verses in the Bible is Matthew 7:12, which is commonly known as the Golden Rule. This verse states, do to others whatever you would like them to do unto you. And this is a verse that Straub conveniently always ignores, constantly engaging in harassment campaigns for various people that she just doesn't like. And also, it should probably go without saying, but defending lollipop isn't exactly something the Bible is keen on either. Ultimately, Straub is a pretty blatant pick-me who, just like her husband Rev, wants to say things about people without actually having to face the consequences of doing so. And if anything, she's really just outed herself even more as a pick-me by going on this big Christian grift. Someone else who very notably did this as another pick-me girl would be Melonie Mac. Melonie Mac is a pretty infamous pick-me who, funny enough, is even despised by anti-woke people as well. And ultimately, it's this sort of thing that cost Melonie her career as a content creator overall, since now she's officially left YouTube altogether. I think out of all the pick-me girls I've already talked about in this video, she actually had the quickest crash and burn for her career in general, since people caught on pretty quickly to what she was doing, even on the anti-woke side. However, she is the same person that was cheering on heel versus babyface's infamous Starfield rant, so I think you can already probably see where this is gonna go.
F off! You're boring!
Can't nobody rant like as just absolute legend of rants, the king of rants. And he says what a lot of us are thinking, and just in his amazing way.
Yeah, that rant was really base, wasn't it, Melonie? Wow. Nothing cooler than a 50-year-old man throwing a temper tantrum about pronouns in a video game. Definitely something to aspire to. Not too long ago, Melonie actually made a video about Lara Croft's design in the Dead by Daylight game. Let's see what she had to say.
So Dead by Daylight dropped more Lara Croft skins in the game. I don't know what's going on because I thought that Lara Croft wasn't staying in the game. Maybe she is, that was a rumor. But she looks worse than ever in these new images. And I have to show you guys, I don't know what is going on. Clearly this is also partially Crystal Dynamics' fault because I mean, they give them the assets, they tell them what they want it to look like. So this is entirely Crystal Dynamics' fault. I said Lara Croft isn't allowed to be beautiful anymore. Look what they did to her, which as you can see, this is in the classic remasters. This is Lara Croft looking as she should. Beautiful, womanly, feminine. There's that. And then you have this. What did they even do? And what is up with those proportions? I thought that perhaps Crystal Dynamics learned how proportions worked because for some reason they don't know basic proportions and that people typically aren't built like this. This is an abnormality.
Okay, let's be real here. Are people generally built like old Lara Croft either though? Her classic design is absolutely iconic, but like, are most women really gonna look like that? She does have a number of features that could be considered exaggerated. Not that that's a bad thing, but like, it's still not a very realistic character design still. So it's interesting she gets mad at the Dead by Daylight design for not looking quote unquote realistic when really the original design doesn't necessarily either. I think you could argue the only time that Lara has looked specifically realistic were in the reboot duology of Tomb Raider games.
There's more, but wait guys. So here you have this. What even is that? What even? That's not Lara Croft. I don't get it. It's some people are, there's actually a couple of there's one comment that's like, oh, this looks like Survivor Lara's face too. I love it. It doesn't. Even the reboot Lara's face looked better than that. What is this? This looks like fan art. This does not look like Lara Croft at all. And why is her mouth open but she has no teeth? What is going on?
Okay, first of all, just because her teeth aren't visible in this painting doesn't mean they aren't there at all. Secondly, I find it interesting that Melonie seems to think that both Lara's design here and also in the reboot games was totally uglified. When, interestingly enough, if you look at some of her earlier videos, which mysteriously have been unlisted, you find the opposite mentality.
I'm gonna start off just talking about the character model because that was a big thing for me. Literally like the exact same character model. So the character model, big win for me. Lara Croft, take a beautiful character and make her uglier. Make her look more and more plain. But I can speak for an improved Lara. Both like physically. In the cutscene, Lara looks great. I really like Lara's character model overall. And in the cutscene, she looks great. You gotta love her, man. You gotta love her. Dude, I love her. Yeah, dude, I love her. She just makes this. She makes the game. I can just honestly say they freaking did it right.
So, Melonie went from glazing Lara's design in all the Tomb Raider reboot games to just 5 years later saying it's ugly out of nowhere. Gee, I wonder what could have spiked up between 2018 and 2025 to make Melonie start saying this and magically change her opinion. There's no way she was grifting and trying to profit off the culture war, right? Right?
Sorry, do you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!
Despite quite literally having the opposite opinion and that being on record not even that long ago, Melonie has suddenly shifted things just because it's profitable now. Wow, this woman is a sellout. She's decided to join all the other grifters that have tried to comment about the uglification of women in video games just because it's profitable now. Yeah, real slick change there, Mel.
Now, if they made a version of her that is objectively more beautiful than this, that's still not the goal. The goal is that she needs to look like herself. And she looks beautiful. She has very characteristic features. She's got full lips, so she should have her full lips. She's got, she just has her curvy, athletic build, so she should look like that. And if they want to make her more realistic looking and less stylized art, you can do that. We have a blueprint. Look at Angelina Jolie, who has a bunch of her features.
So this is an argument I already debunked in my previous Spider-Man video, but no, Angelina Jolie actually had to wear bra padding in the Tomb Raider movie. She made it very clear to the crew when joining the cast for that film that she didn't have the same bust size as Lara Croft. So as a result, they had to find a workaround and ended up giving her bra padding during the filming of that movie.
And that's the problem. She needs to look like herself. Why is that too much to ask? But for some reason, Crystal Dynamics is just super opposed to that. So here we have her in the game here, which I guess it's a little bit better lighting, but still, it's just not, like, if you were to see this, would you know that was Lara Croft? I mean, not unless you've played Rise of the Tomb Raider and you know all of the outfits and you're a fan of specifically Rise of the Tomb Raider. But if you would be thinking of Lara Croft as in classic Lara Croft, there's no way you would make that connection with this. It doesn't look like her. It just looks like generic combat gear girl, right? And then here you have this. Again, what is up with those proportions?
Well, it looks like her classic outfit to me, Melonie. I think anyone could recognize that, even if she doesn't have the same proportions. But clearly she's too ugly, just like you were saying when you magically swapped your opinion about the reboot trilogy.
And I feel like this is the best characterization we've had of Lara ever. I can say that confidently. This version of Lara is the most well-rounded personality that we've ever seen in any Tomb Raider game in the history of time.
This is generally the base definition of someone who is a grifter, someone who will say something they don't even believe, which in this case Melonie very obviously is, just for profit. Another anti-woke pick-me girl that I think is worth talking about briefly, but not spending too much time on for obvious reasons, is none other than Jesterbell. I tend to avoid covering Jesterbell at all costs on this channel since, honestly, she's incredibly obnoxious, and it's always incredibly clear that she has no idea what she's talking about in any of her videos. For those unaware who Jesterbell is, she's somebody who attempts to LARP as a media critic and is also the sister of somebody who works for Ben Shapiro, which already is a great mark of quality there, clearly. She tries to cover different movies, usually movies made by Disney, and rants about them without really having a script or any talking points whatsoever, and often blatantly copies talking points from other channels more popular than her. In fact, she's admitted to doing this in the past when talking about the movie Elio and claiming that she got all her talking points from the channel Film Thread.
Some might even say that it gave them the feels and is not as bad as its throttled marketing would suggest, but I'm here to tell you that those critics are wrong. Elio might be one of the worst, if not the worst, Pixar movies ever made.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Now, I heard a review going into this video that also called Elio the worst Pixar movie ever made. And that video really just narrowed in on the animation and how this movie completely abandons basic animation and filmmaking principles. Now, if you have done any sort of filmmaking or filmmaking study at all, as I have done, then you will know this very basic rule, the rule of thirds.
The guy who took Michael Eisner's board pictures taught us how to take pictures the Disney way. And it wasn't even the Disney way, it was the professional way. And the first thing they taught us, and if any of you know anything about art, you'll understand what this is, but it's called the rule of thirds.
Move this man!
Wow, imagine already being a joke of a channel, but making yourself an even bigger joke by getting your talking points from Chris Gore of all people. Wow. The grift is absolutely real. On top of looking like the zombified corpse of a Walmart Karen, Jesterbell is just incredibly obnoxious with the way she talks and behaves constantly. Unlike the first pick-me girl that I talked about in this video, Jesterbell doesn't even have the luxury of being conventionally attractive and just has to try to rant and whine constantly in every one of her videos. videos. And as you can probably imagine, this doesn't really go over well with most folks, even those who are anti-woke. She very desperately tries to appeal to this audience, but even then it actually doesn't often work. So her crash and burn story is actually pretty simple and not really that interesting, and she's pretty annoying, so I'm just gonna move on here. The last one I want to talk about is Snarky Jay, who is kind of uninteresting in herself as well, but also had a sort of an interesting start at the very least. Snarky Jay is a cosplayer who initially got her start on YouTube by talking about the show Book of Boba Fett. But after initially just making her opinions on things like She-Hulk or Book of Boba Fett, she inevitably went down the anti-woke rabbit hole. Wow, shocker. And she ended up making such hood classic videos like how 90s movies are better than 2000s flops apparently. Ah yes, because clearly mainstream American films, since clearly she's never seen any foreign films or any independent films, cause let's face it, she's not gonna talk about that or care about that at all peaked in the 90s, even though really it peaked in the 70s because that was the revival period for film in general. But of course, Snarky Jay isn't old enough nor is she cultured enough to really realize that. Shocker. It's very clear, even just doing a brief skim of her channel, that she's not really aware of what to talk about at all when it comes to media. Heck, she's not even sure what content to make period since she's made 9 different videos reading mean comments she gets on her videos. Like, come on, really? Who does this? This is next level pathetic behavior. This is like when Tactical Templar was reading his own Kiwi Farms thread. This is such a low-cal move. In general, while Snarky Jay hasn't had as clear of a crash and burn as the other people I've discussed, she honestly still isn't doing that great either, and it's very obvious what people are actually watching her for. And no, it's not her very insightful, deep takes on media. Overall, it's very clear being a pick-me, unfortunately, is not the way to go for most of these people, given just how blatant of a crash and burn the majority of them had. Sydney Sweeney's career as an actress is pretty uncertain now. Rev says Desu's wife, Straub, is pretty much just seen as a lolcow now. Melonie Mac has straight up left YouTube, and the other two are seen as lame media critic LARPers. The desire one might have to become a pick-me is honestly really fascinating to me, because given how all these people tend to end up, it's very obvious it doesn't actually pay off, but so many people still go for it anyway. It's a very funny thing overall, and thankfully me doing the kinds of videos I do has helped a lot more people understand why these kinds of people aren't really real critics whatsoever. Like I said before, Melonie Mac has straight up left the platform, and people like Geeks and Gamers, Clownfish TV, and plenty of others are seeing diminishing viewership as well. Thanks to me doing the kinds of videos I do, a lot of people are more turned on to the grift in general. So thanks everybody for supporting these videos. I'm happy to keep hunting griffly bears. The next videos I have planned are ranking all the Nickelodeon movies as I've talked about before, and also talking about Disney's deal with OpenAI since that's a very controversial thing right now. Hoping I'll see ya for those two topics then. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like and also consider subscribing as well. I do lots of videos like this in general, so if you like this video, you'll probably like the other videos I have planned as well. You can follow me on all my social medias as well by checking out my links in the description. And you can check out my letterboxd to see my written film reviews. If you'd like to communicate with like-minded film and animation fans, you can also join my Discord, which is linked in the description below. Special thanks to my patrons and YouTube members who are listed here on the screen. I appreciate y'all a ton for pitching in with the extra monetary effort to keep me doing what I do here. And I appreciate you for coming to the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. But for now, I've been Otterly Noah, and I'll see you on the otter side. Bye!